just anger. And I'm just in disbelief that he did that to her. She was a good person, a good mother, a good sister, a good daughter. She didn't deserve that.
I snapped. And I snapped. I just went into rage. When I snapped, I wasn't in my right state of mind. I just lost my mind. And
what did you do?
I went crazy.
What did you do?
I started, I asked the dude to get out of my house. And after that, I started forcing it in my wife.
Apologies, you just look at him like, okay, why was you thinking about that before you done this? Why? And he had enough time traveling to say, don't let me be no fool like this now. Let me stop myself, because this is a human being. This is the mother of my children. This is my wife. How they gonna feel if I do something like that?
Before we start, I need you to do something for me. At 16 minutes and 34 seconds, there is a part of this video that I need you to hear. Not the case, not the footage, not the comments. Something bigger. Something that might save your life or someone you love. So please, don't leave before 16:34. That's all I'm asking. Stay with me. Let's get into it.
Courtroom footage, September 2025, Hinds County, Mississippi. A man is sitting at the defense table with his glasses off, wiping tears from his face, telling a jury he just snapped. I wasn't in my right state of mind. I just lost my mind. The prosecutor doesn't flinch, doesn't raise her voice. She just asks one question. You said, I've got to get a drill to remove the tag. True or false? True. You said, I've got to get a gas can to burn the car. True or false? True. A drill, a gas can, a plan. That's not snapping, that's shopping. Ebony Owens was last seen alive on the evening of March 14th, 2023, inside her own home with the man she married. Here's the question everyone asks first. What happened that night? But that's the wrong question. The right question is, how long had he been planning to make her disappear? If you are interested in this case, type "interested" in the comments section and I will give you a heart. Edwards, Mississippi. Scarcely enough to make a high school gym. The type of town where they leave their doors unlocked, their neighbors used to wave at the doorsteps, and the crime is something seen on television, not experienced in your street. Ebony Sharadai Owens was born on the 13th of October, 1986, and she was brought up in Edwards itself. Since she was a small girl, something stood out in her. She was steady, quiet, but present. The type of an individual who did not have to scream to fill a room. Her presence was sufficient. She became a nurse, employee at Jackson Hinds Comprehensive Health Center, and she was not only good at it, she was promoted. Her colleagues characterized her as a team player who was early to work, late to work, and made those she surrounded feel significant. Her manager told her this directly when she went away. They got in love with her and her work. Outside that clinic, Ebony was a mother of 4. It was what the center of everything was. The kitchen table homework, playing in the yard, ensuring that those children felt secure and cherished on a daily basis, regardless of what must have been occurring behind the scenes. And the kids had a name of her in her neighborhood, the Candy Lady. They could always have a sweet in her pocket, always. But here's the thing. Ebony was bearing a burden behind the cordiality and the smiling and the hands which rested steadily. She had been having a bad marriage with Michael Owens. Friends saw it. Family saw it. Arguments, jealousy, accusations, infidelities on both sides, hovering all the time. It was a union of convenience and not of affection. And the folks around Ebony were long time not right. They noticed the tension. They detected the sensation that something was wrong. Nobody said it out loud, but everybody felt it. Michael Owens was 36 years old, an age equal to that of his wife. Away from the village, he was a typical man of a tiny town in Mississippi. But the rifts in that home had long been widening, and Ebony, being Ebony, never gave up the attempt to bind things together. Now let me ask you something. When you saw a loved one gradually drowning in a relationship that was dragging him or her down, and she was constantly assuring you that everything was all right, would you pull harder or would you trust them? Comment push or trust. The individuals surrounding Ebony had faith in her. They believed she was in control of things. And by the early morning of March 15th, 2023, she was gone. March 15th. Ebony doesn't show up for work. That was a 5-alarm fire in itself. Ebony did not miss shifts. She did not go silent. She did not disappear without leaving somebody with whom she had a clue. Her co-workers called. No answer. Her family called. No answer. By afternoon, they had reported to the police. Edwards was not the type of town which handled missing persons cases. This was new territory, and it was about to get worse. March 16th, early morning, a call is received of a car fire on Old Highway 80 off Jones Road. They come and see a white 2015 Acura TLX burned to ashes on the shoulder of the road. There is a can of gases next to it, and in the woods back home, a license plate drilled off and thrown into the bush. That plate returned to Ebony Owens. Consider that series a moment. Somebody drove that car to a piece of barren highway, brought a gas can, brought a drill, removed the plate, hid it in the woods, doused the car, lit it up, and left. That's not snapping. That's a checklist. The missing person case was instantly promoted to a suspected homicide, and the investigators did not have to travel much distance to find their first person of interest. The last person to see Ebony alive was Michael Owens, and right after the first talk with the detectives, the red flags began to wave. He assured that he did not know what had become of his wife, offered vague answers, shifting details, a timeline that just did not work. Investigator Richard Brown would subsequently testify that Michael was not credible in the first place. However, here's where it counts. As Michael was speaking, the facts were piling up behind him. The warrant was issued to detectives on the home of the couple, which was located at Ridgeland Ranch Apartments on County Line Road, and what they had found there told them all they had to know. Bloody blankets on the bed, bloody clothing, magazines with ammunition and rifles, lost bank statements and documents thrown away like a person had been hurrying to tidy up house. The mattress, the floor, the laundry, all of it stained. This was not a house of a man where his wife had merely disappeared. This was a crime scene. The call was made by Hinds County Sheriff Tyree Jones on the 16th of March 2023. Michael Owens was accused of arson and murder and arrested. Nevertheless, Ebony was not yet discovered. And there is one thing more I have not told you, something that investigators found in the search of that home that would take this case to a whole new level. We'll come back to that, at least keep to the timeline. Police thought that Ebony had been thrown off of a bridge at the Big Black River. That river is no small thing. Dark water, rapid flow, loaded with rubbish, the type of river that absorbs what it gets and does not give it readily. Search crews operated on that water 10 days. The Warren County Sheriff Department, the Wildlife and Fisheries Department, Hinds County Emergency Management. They used drones and side-scan sonar technology, which is able to cut through the mud to scan the riverbed beneath. But the conditions turned against them everywhere. The river had fallen close to 3 feet since Ebony had been lost, and this fact is pleasant until you consider how it would have left boats barely able to pass in and out of the water, debris everywhere, temperatures dropping. It was simple, as one of the search coordinators told. Everybody has a theory on where the body could be. There was a great deal of debris in this river. It is just really hard to say. 10 days passed. The family of Ebony waited. Her 4 children waited. Her mother, Alice, waited. Her best friend, who had been acquainted with her since they were both 5 years old, waited. Vigils were organized by the community of Edwards. Ebony had never met people who had gone out to help her. This was a town which had never been heard of, and it was now holding its breath. March 25th, 2023, 10 days after she vanished, on a sandbar in the Big Black River, search teams discovered the body of Ebony. She had at least been shot in the head, was covered with a blanket, and was taken to that bridge at the middle of the night and thrown over the water. A nurse, a mother of 4, the Candy Lady, thrown off a bridge wrapped in a blanket like she was nothing. Gone too soon should it have struck you like it struck me. The recovered Ebony gave investigators an idea of her remaining hours. Michael spent the night at home with her on March 14, 2023. Something went wrong inside that house, and it all culminated in Michael taking a gun and shooting her into the head. And then he went to work. Not grief, not shock, not remorse, work. He covered her body with a blanket, loaded her into a vehicle, went to the bridge of the Big Black River one night around the middle of the night and precipitated her over the railing. Then he went back for the car, doused it in fuel, set it on fire, took a drill, removed the license plate, threw it in the woods, drove home, cleaned up the blood. And when investigators knocked the following day, he gazed them in the eye and said he did not know where his wife was. There were no calls of panic to 911, no efforts to attract her medical attention, no point at which he paused and reflected on what he was about. He shot her, and then he took the better part of the next several hours to ensure that none would ever know. That was the plan, and briefly he might have thought that it would work. It did not.
Quick shout out to the subscriber who's been rocking with us since episode 1. Appreciate you being part of this. Remember when I said investigators found something in that home that changed the shape of this case? Here it is. After Michael Owens was arrested for murder and arson, additional charges were filed. Sexual battery of a minor, 2 counts of sexual assault of a minor, filed separately, details sealed to protect the identity of the minor involved. Those charges never made it into the murder trial. The court kept them separate, but they are in the record, filed by the same department that pulled Ebony from that river. Now here's what we know. Michael told investigators multiple versions of what happened on the night of March 14th. In one version, he said he came home and found Ebony in bed with another man, a mysterious man who supposedly ran out of the house. Investigators found zero evidence that any such man existed. No forensic trace, no witness sighting, no phone records, nothing. In another version, he said Ebony reached for a gun and he fired in self-defense. In another, he said she made him snap. The story changed every single time he was pressed. But here's what never changed: the charges on the other docket, the ones involving a minor. The original reporting on this case suggested Ebony may have discovered something about Michael that night, something involving someone in her own household, and that this discovery is what triggered the confrontation that ended her life. That detail was never confirmed in open court. The minor's identity was protected throughout. But the charges exist, and they tell their own story. Think about what that means. If Ebony walked in on something that night, something her husband could not afford to have known, then this wasn't a crime of passion. This was a man silencing the only witness to something even worse. And that changes everything about how you hear this case. In the early interviews, Michael Owens was cooperative, calm even. He had a story ready. He came home, found Ebony in bed with a man, the man ran, there was a confrontation, things got out of hand. It was clean, rehearsed, almost too smooth. But there was a problem. No evidence of any other man. None. No DNA, no fingerprints, no shoe prints at the door, no neighbor saw anyone leave, no phone record showed any contact between Ebony and a mystery visitor. Investigators noted that immediately. Detectives started laying cards on the table: the bloody blankets from the bedroom, the shell casings, the blood on the bridge, the drill, the gas can, the burnt-out car, the license plate in the woods. One by one, they walked Michael through the physical evidence, and one by one, his story started bending. You said, "I've got to get a drill to remove the tag." True or false? True. You said, "I've got to get a gas can to burn the car." True or false? True. Those weren't the words of a man who snapped. Those were the words of a man who had a list. 4 hours of recorded interview footage. That's how long it took.
4 hours of denying, deflecting, redirecting before Michael Owens finally admitted what he had done. He said she made him snap. He said he was so mad he just shot her. Admitted to shooting her multiple times. Admitted to dumping her body in the river. Admitted to burning the car. But even in the confession, the story kept shifting. Even when he was finally telling the truth, he couldn't stop adjusting the frame. He couldn't give one straight version of events from start to finish without adding something new, changing something old, or leaving something out. On the stand, 2 years later, he would cry. He would remove his glasses because the tears were so heavy. He would tell the jury he lost everything, his wife, his kids, his home. But the prosecution wasn't moved. They had 4 hours of tape, and so did the jury. This is the part I told you about at the beginning, the part that isn't about Michael Owens. It's about you and the people you love. Here's what Ebony's case teaches us if we're willing to listen. The most dangerous moment in an abusive or volatile relationship is the moment of discovery. Not the first argument, not the first time someone crosses a line. The moment the abuser realizes they've been exposed. That is when the risk of lethal violence spikes. Domestic violence researchers have documented this pattern for decades. When a victim discovers something their partner cannot afford to have known, when they confront it, when they take steps to leave, that is statistically the most dangerous window they will ever be in. So here's what I need you to hear. If you are in a relationship where you feel controlled, where your partner's anger scares you, where you find yourself constantly managing their emotions just to keep the peace, you are not overreacting. That feeling in your gut is information. Trust it. If you discover something about your partner that they would do anything to keep hidden, do not confront them alone. Do not assume you can handle it in the moment. Do not let adrenaline make that decision for you. Tell someone first, a friend, a family member, a professional. Nobody will make you do anything you're not ready to do, but they will help you make a plan. And if someone in your life suddenly goes quiet, stops answering calls, misses work out of nowhere, don't wait. Don't assume they overslept. Don't assume they'll call back tomorrow. Act. Call for a welfare check. Go to their door. Push. Ebony's co-workers knew immediately that something was wrong when she didn't show up for her shift. They were right. They felt it before they had any proof. And if you ever feel it, trust it. Because the people who loved Ebony, who searched that river for 10 days, who filled a church to say goodbye to her, every single one of them will tell you the same thing. They wish they had known sooner. They wish they had pushed harder. They wish they had trusted what they felt before it was too late. Don't wait for proof. Don't wait for permission. If something feels wrong, it probably is. September 2025. 2 years after Ebony's murder, the trial of Michael Owens began in Hinds County. The prosecution laid out the case piece by piece, DNA evidence, shell casings recovered from the home, the burned-out Acura on Old Highway 80, Michael's 4 hours of recorded interviews, surveillance footage, text messages, and witness after witness who described a man whose story never stayed the same twice. The defense argued crime of passion. They said this was a troubled marriage defined by mutual infidelity and emotional volatility. They said Michael broke under pressure. They asked the jury to consider manslaughter instead of murder. But the jury had seen the drill, the gas can, the clean clothes ready to go, the 4 hours of lies before the confession, the body wrapped in a blanket and thrown from a bridge in the dead of night. On September 8, 2025, the jury returned their verdict. Guilty of first-degree murder. Guilty of third-degree arson. Judge Faye Peterson did not hold back at sentencing. She described the details of the case as among the most troubling she had encountered in her time on the bench. She called Michael's actions narcissistic, devious, selfish, childish, and driven entirely by his own desires. She called the killing exactly what it was. Life in prison for the murder of Ebony Owens. 3 additional years for arson, served consecutively. Before the verdict was read, Michael stood and apologized to Ebony's family. It did not land. Ebony's stepfather said it plainly. "Sorry, that ain't gonna get it for me, because I will never forget this. Never." Ebony's mother, Alice, spoke outside the courthouse. She said she was thankful justice was served. She said no human should have gone through what her daughter went through, and she said the only thing she can do now is stay strong, for herself, for her family, and for her grandchildren. Michael Owens is expected to appeal, but for now he is exactly where the jury decided he belongs. The charges of sexual battery of a minor remain a separate, sealed matter. The details have not been made public. The identity of the minor has been protected. But those charges sit in the record, and they remind anyone paying attention that what happened on the night of March 14, 2023, may have roots far darker than a broken marriage and a moment of rage. Ebony Owens was 36 years old, a nurse who had just been promoted, a mother of 4 who made sure her kids felt loved every single day, a woman her neighbors called the Candy Lady, a woman whose best friend had known her since they were 5 years old, a woman who spent her whole life showing up for other people, and in the end, the person who was supposed to show up for her destroyed her. That's what this case teaches. Not that evil is obvious, not that danger announces itself, but that sometimes the person you trust the most is the one you should be watching the closest. If this case made you think about someone in your life, if something I said reminded you of a situation you've been trying not to see clearly, don't ignore it. Say something. Do something. You might be the reason someone gets out alive. Have you ever seen warning signs in someone else's relationship and stayed quiet? What would you do differently now? Leave it in the comments. This file is now closed.